Hello and welcome to the Wise Why. This morning I am joined by the amazing, wonderful, energetic Lindsay McLoughlin, who I met at a Women in Business networking event run by Howard Feathers. So you can start to see there is some kind of theme going on with the people who come on the Wise Why, because it's people that I have spotted and just gone, wowzers, that's a life force. And as usual, the show is not about me. It is about my guest. So straight over to Lindsay. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
Oh, how nice to be described as a life force. How very sweet of you. So my name is Lindsay McLoughlin. I run Athena Network Territories. I have two franchises, actually, one in Maidenhead and Marlow and one in Southwest Oxfordshire. So I have 6 groups, and it's women-only networking, which is all about training, support and collaboration. And I just love it. It's what gets me up every morning.
It must be super busy because, it's 6. Did you just say 6 groups?
I run 6 groups.
6 groups, all women. So how many women are in the network?
Oh, across the whole network, there's 150 groups across the network. And each group has varying sizes, but we've got about 1,300 members approximately.
Wow.
And because we're online now, the networking reach is so much further. So as a member, you become a member of your own group. Say it could be Abingdon or Oxford or whatever it is. And so you have a localness to it. And so you're able to meet people in the local area, but you can travel without traveling to any other group across the network to expand your reach. So the opportunities are endless, really.
That's incredible. But you didn't start off networking, did you? You've got an absolutely amazing story, which I didn't know about until you sent your bio through. And for the first question I want to ask you is, where was your parents' business based?
Okay. So my parents had a business which was actually my grandparents' business, then my parents' business, and it was selling ice hockey and ice skates and rollerblades. And it was based in Kingston, and it was always in my family background, and it was always around the family table, and it was always sort of discussed. I sort of grew up with it, really. So I grew up in a business conversation environment. And so what happened was, so the sad part, this is the sad part. I went to university in my late 20s, and my mother was very ill with cancer. So she sadly passed away while I was at university. And I had always intended to go into the family business to learn from my father and learn from my mother. And sadly, my mother passed away. And this was decision time for me. So she died on the Thursday. I left college on the Friday, and I took over her role on the Friday. So on the Monday. On the immediate Monday after that. So, which was a bit, nobody was pressing me to do this, but it felt like the right and the honorable thing to do. So I left my degree halfway and then took over my mother's role, which wasn't easy.
So I've got a lovely story that you don't know about. You really don't know this. So when did the business close? Because I've got something really exciting to share here.
Oh,
Yeah.
when did it go? Oh gosh, now you're asking. I would say, oh gosh, now I have to think. I really do have to think about this.
In the 90s.
Yes.
Yeah. So I bought my roller boots from you.
Did
Bought my
you?
roller. Yeah. So I came in. Now this I've held on to this. I didn't tell you this beforehand. I came in when I was doing Starlight Express skate school, and I bought a pair of. Yeah, I knew you'd love this. I bought a pair of white ice skating boots, which you put on my rollers. So you
Yeah.
probably don't remember me, but I came in and bought and they are downstairs in my garage because I'm teaching my daughter to roller skate. So from my skate school at Starlight Express, I came to your shop because I grew up in Epsom. So you didn't know that.
That's extraordinary. So did you meet me? Because I do remember the skates going into Starlight Express. I remember that
Yes,
promotion.
yes, I met you. I think you fitted my shoes.
No.
So I've held on to that nugget until this moment because I wanted to double check before I shared it that it was actually your shop. So if I'd given to you that before we went live, we wouldn't have got that lovely oh my goodness moment. But yes, I was one of your customers and I loved your shop. And my boots are still got the black, because the Starlight boots had to not leave a mark, if you remember, and the
Yep.
toe stopper. And I remember going, no, 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 no. And I didn't want to go for the brown boots, which all the Starlight had. I wanted my white ones, which I'm about to, with my daughter, spray paint, and I'm teaching my daughter to roller skate. So yeah.
Wow. What an awesome surprise to have. Thank you. I remember the event. I remember going to the show. I'm so sorry I don't remember you
Well,
personally,
you
but
wouldn't have done. I was just one of the many. So what people don't realise about Starlight Express was you had to go with Eileen Phillips this will be an interesting one. So Eileen Phillips had skate school. And various different people coached it. And a lot of my friends, I never got in, a lot of my friends did. So you will have
right.
supplied boots to a lot of the people that I trained with when I was training at Arts Ed. So yeah, I just thought that was a really lovely moment to bring in that you wouldn't expect. So did you grow up in Kingston?
Yes, grew up around Esher, around Kingston, and was away at boarding school and things like that. And then my parents moved into London, and then then my mother passed away, and then I worked with my father selling ice skates and rollerblades and so on and so forth. And the role that I had actually, I wasn't very well suited to. So my mother was the bookkeeper, company secretary, payroll. She did all the books and did all the numbers. And I just simply thought I could sort of follow her footsteps. And it wasn't my natural place. And, you know, even at university, when I was doing sort of the finance side of my business studies degree, it was harder for me to kind of get my head around than, say, the marketing side of things, or the personnel side of things, or the people side of things. And so it wasn't easy for me to do this. And because I wasn't doing what came naturally. Everything was just a little bit uphill for me because I just couldn't do it. I mean, I did it, but I didn't find
Yeah.
it easy. And on the other hand, with the arrival of rollerblades and roller skates and so on, I got involved in that, and I ran various promotional events and street skate hockey events in Brighton and the clothes show and stuff. So I found out I really like the marketing side of the business, and the people side of the business, and the communication side of the business. So I learned a lot there. And working as a double act with my father was a good thing. He was a very powerful, exuberant character. He's passed away now, but he was a very not violent, vibrant character.
Vibrant, yeah, I heard that.
And I was sort of the person behind the scenes, sort of helping with his exuberance, I suppose. And we made a super team for about sort of 10 years, and then the business finished. And then it was, what do I do now?
So how did you evolve? Because I'm not even going to try and say the company that you moved to with the CEO who saw your potential, which I think is really really interesting, because a lot of the time you go in, you're trying to fit somebody into a role, but this person actually, and I wondered who the CEO was, because this person saw your potential and helped and supported you to grow, which is pretty much what the Athena Network do. But it's interesting to understand that nurture that you got from this person.
Yes, it was EdXL, which is an awarding body. You'll see their names around sort of GCSEs and qualifications. So I didn't know what to be. So the business was finished. My father had retired, and I didn't know what to be or what to present myself as, because I knew some marketing, I knew how to run a business, and I had some reasonably good admin skills, but I didn't know the what in terms what I wanted to present myself as. So I was offered a contract by EdXL. So it was 6 months to work with the CEO at that time. Her name was Tina. And it was diary management, a full-time 6-month role running her diary. And that was all it was: diaries and meetings, and taxis, and making sure she got to the right place at the right time with the right papers on the right meeting, the right people. And I loved it. It was like setting up a crossword, and everybody knew everything at the right time in the right places. And I loved it. I loved the sort of movement of people side of it. And I think she thought I was doing a good job. So at some stage at the end of the 6-month contract, she sat down and sort of went, who are you? What's your story? So I told her the story about the wholesale business and the skating and the rollerblading and the events and my father and all of that. And so she said, so you've got a sort of business head and you like marketing. We need somebody to develop a team in the business side of Edexcel. And what they were doing was they were creating a team for the business side of qualifications. So it was sort of NVQs to businesses. So for instance, hairdressers might need NVQs for their staff. And it was sort of marketing and selling the idea to BTECs and things like that. So there was no team, there was no department, there was nothing. That was just the plan. And so she said, I just wondered whether you wanted to do that, set up a team and run it. So I did. And that actually was the moment where I sort of I learned my first networking skills, but I didn't know there were networking skills until later on when I look back. But it was setting up a brand new team to market towards the business side of qualifications.
Isn't it interesting? And I do find this interesting. The word networking. So I've talked about this before. The word networking doesn't mean going and meeting people to me. It means your infrastructure for your office. It's your oh my goodness, it's your Ethernet cable, it's your managed switch, it's your core network. So I really struggled when I first heard the word that you've got to go out business networking, because what went through my head was the internet. So it's I would much prefer it to be communication skills, and that is ultimately, and I'm not pushing you down the rabbit hole here, but I'm interested to know, because the Athena network, because of the skills you got at, is it Adecco?
Edexcel.
Edexcel. Ask a dyslexic to say a word that you can't even see. It's like, oh. But it's interesting, that combination, because we now talk about networking as what it is. But in the old days, we used to call it meetings and connections. But that is a foundation of what you do at Athena, isn't it?
It is. And so if I just sort of take you back and fill the gap that happened in Edexcel, it is creating relationships before you need them. That's what networking is. And what I did at Edexcel was I was suddenly given this task of creating a whole new team of people in this awesome sized building in London, which was different to where I'd been before with a small business. This was a huge organization with hundreds of people and large departments. And I remember thinking, if I need to create this team, I need to know people in the building. And I decided to make a friend in every single department across that whole building. And that was my first strategy, because I thought, if I need printing, I need a friend in the printing department. If I need marketing, I need someone in the marketing. But there's a problem with payroll, and so on and so on and so on. So over the first 3 months, I walked the building and made a friend in every department. So I invited one person for lunch every single day, so that I had relationships in place before I needed them. So that was a networking strategy, but I didn't know I was doing it. So roll on into my world of Athena. And that's what I say to people. What you're doing is you're making relationships before you need them, so that, let's say you're running a business. And I was listening to your podcast with Susanna last week, Kirsty, and you were saying it's time to perhaps sort of work with a VA or something. So now you might well know virtual assistants and you're probably a little bit in your heads going, I'm not ready to have a conversation, but you've grown the relationships before you need them. And that's what networking is.
It's interesting, because I don't think you can escalate or grow a business without those relationships. And I was talking to somebody last night, and we were talking about how I had got to where I am now. And she said, you've got there really quickly. And I went, but I embraced networking quite quickly. And whilst I couldn't afford a lot of networking, and one of the things a lot of new business owners will say is, I don't have time. And I'm going to say, you have to make the time. Now, I'm not, as you know, I'm not a member of the Athena network, because ultimately it's time at the moment. But it's that thing of, you have to go out there, you have to find the people that are going to be your tribe.
Yes.
And now these people you might not be in the same network with, but they are very much the people that would catch you and hold you. And a lot of people also think, I had this, when I go networking, I want to sell. And it's like, I've never sold at a networking event. And I'd love you to explain a bit more on that, because a lot of people, especially new startups, think when you go networking, you've got to pitch and you've got to sell.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely isn't that. And I think if you give off a vibe of selling, people will go the other way. And I think, I didn't know this when I first started networking. So if I introduce you to the story about when I was first introduced to networking, I had created, so I'd left Edexcel, roll on a bit of time, and I now had a proofreading, blogging, and copywriting business. And I created a website, and somebody I knew said, well, you've got to go networking. And I, no, don't want to do that. The website, it'll bring me all these people. And you went, it won't. So if you want to go networking, go. And I honestly, I went pretty much kicking and screaming. I thought networking was, well, I had all these fears, and which I'm sure everybody does before they go to a networking event, because you have this idea that you create yourself, that everybody in there is so successful and smooth and capable, and you're not. And that's what I was thinking. So I took a deep breath and I walked in, because it was offline. I went in those days. Walked in and just fell in love with the people and the vibe and what they were doing. And so I joined that day. It was for me, it was an Athena meeting. And so I went and I stayed. But one thing I learned quite early on was that what I was doing was I was making a really big mistake. And I was starting to say things like, oh, do you have marketing materials? Do you have anybody check them over? And what I was doing was actually sending people the other way. And it wasn't helpful. And it took me 2 or 3 months for this penny to drop, that actually it's not about steering the conversation back to your business and how you can help. It's actually, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And the more you put into the giving and the helping, the more you help the networking soup. And you create a really strong networking reputation and networking persona. And then you're the one people refer to when they have an opportunity for you. So that's what it is. It's about giving, it's about helping, it's about feeding the soup, really.
I love that. I really do. So I want to touch, because we skipped quite a bit,
Yes.
but you moved from Kingston or London to Henley, and you set up a childminding business. Now that is also building a network.
It was. So you're absolutely right. So finished at Excel, then moved to Henley with my family. And we had one child, one daughter, and a baby on the way. And then a third baby came along later. So 3 girls. I had 3 children under 4 at one point. And we'd moved to Henley, and I had been working in London, but hadn't created a network yet in Henley, because the kids were too young for school. They were in nursery and I was working in London. So finished with London, and now I was in Henley. And what to do, how to actually earn a little bit of money to continue contributing to the house and have a structure. I like routine. I sort of like knowing what's happening each day. So I set up a childminding business to give me routine, so that I knew which child was coming on which day, and who liked the ducks and which one liked painting. And then, but also I met lots of parents. I met lots of people. I went to lots of baby groups and things like that. So I created an internal Athena, no, not Athena, didn't come till later, an internal Henley network, which still serves me, actually.
It's really important, because obviously I'm at that. My daughter's in primary, and we've talked quite a lot on the show about the Mums Network and how important it is and how it will carry you through. So I'm at the sort of primary age, but you're at the going to university and people fleeing the nest, and I'm sure your Mums Network are there for you right now.
Absolutely. And I've created some amazing friends over the year in Henley. Absolutely. So time's moving on. So my 3 girls are, one's at university in Newcastle, and she's sort of settling in. It's as far as I can see, it's party, then a lecture, then party, I think, up there. And it's a long way away, it's 200 miles. So that's taking some adjusting. And then my next daughter, Laura, is about to do A-levels next summer. And so we're looking at what she's going to do. She wants to do physiotherapy. So I know nothing about physiotherapy. So it's a bit of a learning curve for us all as we sort of get to grips with that. I mean, Wendy was doing economics, which was a sort of subject you can understand within our backgrounds, I suppose. Then physiotherapy for Laura, and then Anna's just about to go and do her A level, so she has to change schools. So it's all change in our family at the moment as they all move to their next stages, and my husband's retiring as well. So everything's on the move. But how we got time flies.
You're great with change, and it's very brave to give up life in London. Was it London you left? Yeah, so it's really brave to give up London life and move to Henley. That must have taken, apart from you not having the friendship and that network, there's a big change in pace of life as well that people don't necessarily know until you've done it. Because when I was in London, I walked everywhere. I didn't think about it. I would walk from where I was living to the centre of town. I was in and out. It was busy. And then I moved out to rural Oxfordshire and got completely confronted with no streetlights. And I'd grown up in suburbia, as in just outside Epsom. And so this was all very different. It must have been different for you as well.
It was, but something, with having had a baby in London and working in London, you're not using London properly anyway. You tend to you're going straight to work and doing your doing, and then you're far more focused on your hours at the office because you've got to get back to the nursery by 6 o'clock to pick the baby up and things like that. And then you're feeding the baby, putting the baby to bed, and then you go again for the next day. And then that's how it sort of rolled, really. So you're how I looked at it was, or how we looked at it was, you're not really using London properly anyway. So then when we moved to Henley, it's a different lifestyle there because you tend to make friends and people through the various routes, and you can go out in town, you're going to know people. You go to a restaurant, you're going to know people. I found that a really big change, and I didn't know what to do when you went out for dinner with the friend that you've chosen to go out for dinner with, or your husband, and there'd be a friend sitting somewhere 2-3 tables down. Do you invite them to join you at the table, or do you just acknowledge and smile and say hello? It took me a while to learn the rules on that one because they're actually on their private evening out as well. Whereas with my London self, thought, crikey, what's the rules here?
I love that. I genuinely love that because I can remember, and unfortunately the friendship's passed. Yeah, it's gone now. But I remember a friend of mine saying to me, when we go out, they were very London centric. When we go out, you're always saying hello to other people. You're not focusing on me. And I'd be like, but they live in the village and we've got things to talk about because our kids are at school, we've got because I'd got into that country set, and I do feel like the country wife. I got into that country set where that's what you did. You went, hello, how you do? How are the kids? You have a quick conversation. Then you go to your table. But that was considered incredibly rude by my London friends. So it's an interesting moment to bring up. So as we're talking about friendships, there must be people who have absolutely inspired you along the way.
Friendships wise,
and people
wise, I think I get a lot of inspiration within the network, business wise, and it's watching the women. What gets me up in terms of sort of Athena is people coming into the network and they know they've got to do it, and they were a bit like me when I first started, and you sort of hear them listening to you and going, okay, I'll try that. Lindsay says this is going to work. And then you watch them grow, and then you watch this brand new confidence come. So that inspires me, just the sort of growth of women in business, just stepping out of themselves and trying something new in a sort of safe environment. In terms of inspiration, I always look to Jacqueline, who created the network. She's on fire. She's 18 years later, she's leading us all and training us and giving us new ideas as to what we can do for our members and how we can serve them. Then for sort of inspiration above that, you could look at Maya Angelou, and one line that she has, which I always try and get right when I repeat it, which is, people will hear what you say, hear what you say, but it's actually how you feel. That it's that I always get it slightly wrong as I try and test myself every time to remember it, but it's about looking and talking and how you feel, and that's a statement that I try and live by all the way through my networking and the groups that I lead.
It's really important. I always say this, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah. And how you
Because
make
how
people
you
feel.
say it is driven by what you feel. And so, you can have a sentence of "I love you." It's such a simple one. And "I love you" can be beautiful, or it can be the most painful, hurting, most destructive word in the sentence in the world. And it's powerful in so many ways. And so how you say it, how you feel when you say it is really key. I'm going to look that quote up, and
Yeah.
after this, can you put it into the comments, because it'd be really good, because I know people want to look at that. So we've talked about your life, we've talked about where you've come from and how you've ended up in Henley. If you had one thing, a magic wand moment, I've never asked this question, I very rarely ask it. If you had a magic wand moment, what would you do with it? I know, good question.
It's a great question. I think right now, for me, in my family world, we're going through transition. So my husband's retiring. I'm looking to sell my Maidenhead and Marlow franchise to give myself some more home and work balance life, more time with the family. But then the family are fleeing. So they're all going into sort of university lives. And I am really looking forward to being a part of that change and going to wherever it is they are to do whatever, see them in their places and spend more time with my husband. So at the moment, as I speak to you today, we are having a lot of family conversations internally about the retirement, about the potential sale of the other region, and about what life's going to look like for my husband and me when, we have this more time with each other. Because I say to him, I'm married you for life, but not for lunch. That's our sort of internal conversation at the moment. And then the 3 kids. So if I had a magic wand, I'd quite like to jump about 6 or 8 months to this new life I'm going to have, and the more exercise time I'm going to have, the swimming time, the time with the dog, the lunch on the days I want to have lunch with my husband. So I think I'd go for that, because at the moment I feel there's a lot of conversations to be done, a lot of exploration to be done, a lot of conversations still to be had before everything settles into the new, what it's going to be.
I love that, I really do. So Athena was originally face-to-face, now it's online. That must have taken some adjusting to, and obviously we've all been affected by the pandemic. So I'm just wondering what that adjustment period was like.
Okay, so yes, we at Athena saw, like everybody else, saw the threat perhaps coming over the hill that, there was going to be a lockdown. But at Athena, what we did was we planned for it. So there are 30 approximately regional directors. There are 30 people like me running regions around the country. We met every single day over Zoom for 10 days ahead of the lockdown, going, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? How are we going to manage this? The answer was, go online, because what we were thinking of was our members are women, and they are in various ages and stages of their lives. Some were at home and they were going to have their husbands at home, and they were going to have kids to look after and kids to homeschool. There were going to be people who are single and at home and would be isolated. What we said was, we have to stop to prevent the isolation. So we put on extra events. We had vuddles, virtual huddles, where women could just call in and cry and go, oh my goodness, I can't do this, or I'm on my own, or I'm worried about my mother, or I can't go to the nursing home. So we ran those. And then we also said to our members, you're still a member of Maidenhead or Abingdon or wherever it was, you can now travel and visit any group anywhere for no extra cost, based on one simple membership. So that was extraordinary. It saved a lot of people. Even members still say to me now, if you hadn't done that, I'd have been broken. It looked after a lot of women. It gave them contact with women who are like-minded, who cared. So, but what actually also happened was that businesses and women served each other in different ways. We had speakers. I've had speakers from Nottingham and Bournemouth and so on contribute to my meetings, which just would never have been possible offline. So the transition was overnight. But what we did is, within Athena, still sticking with how we managed it as regional directors, we had Zoom meetings for the whole 3 months, every single morning throughout, just to look after each other, because we all had our own issues to think about, but also to look how we could look after our members more. What could we do? So we had virtual cream teas. We sent Victoria Sponge messages to recipes to people and told them to come with fancy hats. And we had an online tea with hundreds of people. And then we've had online festival with hundreds of people across the world. And you can set an incredible vibe online. And so I've fallen in love with it. I've fallen in love with the opportunities, but I haven't forgotten how nice it is to meet offline as well. So the transition is to an online network with offline networking at the discretion of the regional director. So I get my members together every quarter or so offline. That's what happened. And it was amazing.
I genuinely love that. I love that the way you've talked about women supporting each other and also refilling your cup, because it's very easy, particularly when you're in that kind of leadership role, that you've given out and you've given out and you've given out, but nobody's refilling your cup. So it's really lovely to know that you actually have that incredible support through the whole of the network. It's pretty powerful. So you've had a lot of changes in your life, and I love the way that you've adapted and brought those changes in. Aha moments. I love this question. There must have been a few.
Aha moments. I think my aha moment was this. This was the day that I took over the Maidenhead and Marlow region. So I'd been inside Athena for years, and I'd been built by Athena. That's how I describe it. In that everything that's grown and changed in me since I walked into Athena has been because of an Athena woman somewhere doing something. And the Maidenhead and Marlow regional director previous to me announced in a meeting that she wanted to sell her region. And I went, oh my God, I want it. And I didn't hear myself say it until it was said. And people in the room went, oh my goodness, you'd make a great regional director. And I went, oh my God, I want it. Everything wobbled inside me. And so I spoke to her and I said, what do I have to do this? And with 3 months later, I was a regional director. So that to me was an aha moment. I had found for me what I needed to do, and I fit. Remember those days I was trying to do my mother's job? I didn't fit. I fit this. I get this. I love this, and I have loved it since that day I said I wanted it when I didn't even know I did. That was my aha moment, and I've loved every minute.
And that shines from you. That is one of the things when I walked into that women in networking room. I mean, I didn't sit on your table, but I sat at another table. There was this shining energy coming from you, which is why I call you a life force, because you really are. And anyone I speak to goes, oh, yes, she's amazing. So, and of course, I know, interesting enough, tying back to one of my earlier Wise, is I had Yvonne Pritchard on the show, and she knows you. Yes. And Yvonne also has a lovely, shining, honest energy. She was vulnerable on the show, and it was just absolutely beautiful. And I love that honesty. I really do. And I really have thoroughly enjoyed you sharing your honesty and your vulnerability this morning. So I hold that and say thank you. On that note, you get to ask me a question. Now, I don't know what this is going to be.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll ask you a question. What I'd like to know is, you work on your own. What was your first step into networking like for you when you started your business and someone said you needed to go networking? How did you feel?
Excuse me, Zakov. Interesting, because obviously, so everyone knows I was an actor. So acting is when you go to the theatre, you're networking. It's very different. You're getting drunk a lot. It's very different style of networking. You're going partying and you're going out at 9 o'clock at night and coming back at 6 in the morning. So it's a slightly different way of networking. It didn't stop the nerves. So the first time, and I've talked about this with Sharon on the Sharon Smith's Wise Why, when I walked into the Women in Business networking event, it was uncomfortable because suddenly I wasn't going as Kirsty Elkin, the actor, and I wasn't going as my corporate head. I was walking in as me, and I hadn't quite found, let's be brutal on this, I hadn't quite found my business model. The pandemic had changed what I wanted to do. So I had gone down a route that actually, I have to say, my tagline worked. It stopped people in the tracks. But I didn't want to pitch, and I found I didn't quite fit. It wasn't I didn't fit. It was just that people kept talking about this 60-second or 30-second pitch. And I kept going, but you don't pitch. Why are you pitching? Why are you pitching? So I had to learn that terminology, I think, is the biggest thing, where they say pitch, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm not going to pitch. I'm going to serve. I don't do pitching. I don't do it. Don't do that elevator pitch. So I think it was about sort of settling in. The kind of person I am, this platform is my networking, inviting people onto the show, listening to their life story.
Mhm.
And that's actually how I've built probably my network up, is through the Wise Why, because I get to hear your stories and I get to know about you. And then when I see you in the street, I can come up to you and go, I love your story. We can have a hug and we know each other. So yeah, interesting. I did try business coaches as a form of networking. It didn't work for me. What I found was I want to flit in and I want to flit out. That's the kind of person I am. I want to be, I want to, I'm a people watcher.
Mhm.
So I have to people watch. And I
So
have to
what you've
study.
done is that's very interesting. You've found your way that suits you. And I
Yeah.
think, as I think we've agreed, networking brings so much, it brings so many opportunities. But you need to find what suits you, where your tribes are, and where you're able to fly and be comfortable at the same time. And absolutely, this what you're doing here is super powerful and very much enjoyable. So keep going.
Well, you get a copy of this. So this is what people probably don't realize about the Wise Why. When I get the time, because I really do need to get a VA. When I get the time, and I've actually got a meeting in about an hour and a half with somebody. So when I get the time, then I share this with you, and you get a copy, and you get to go and do what you want. I honestly cut me out of it. People always laugh when I say this. I go, yeah, go use your editing software, turn it into portrait, and cut me out, and go and fly with it, because I love the show. I love these conversations. They're very, very precious. And what I love about the Wise Why is it's really honest. So thank you for your honesty today. Thank you for giving your time up, and I hold your story dearly in my heart.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing about that, the rollerblade story at the front. So there's a surprise. So thank you for the whole thing. It's been a joy.
No problem.